Ben here, back with another video for you. Now today I want to talk about something that we all dread the conversation, and it's safety. Safe, that nasty little 4-letter word. It's just about as bad as any curse word out there. You know, everybody rolls their eyes and cringes as soon as somebody wants to talk about safety. And I'm involved in that group of people. And there's a reason for that. You know, most people will sit down and preach about safety are the people that have never experienced the work in their lives. Most of the people are people that sit in an office and push pencils around and tell people what the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. And it's mostly, you know, everybody wants to preach to everybody else about how they should or shouldn't do something. I'm not one of those people, and I don't like when people do that to me. Now, with that being said, safety is one of those things that you don't want to see anybody get hurt, and no one gets up in the morning and says, hey, you know, I'm going to go and cut my fingers off in a saw, or I'm going to go and crush my hand, or I'm going to go and put myself in a position that I'm not going to go home at the end of the day. Everyone wants to be safe. Nobody gets up with the intention of getting hurt. Now, I've had some personal life experiences where a few close people to me have gotten hurt in the last couple of days. And I'm not going to mention any particular names, and I'm not going to show any pictures, although I have some nasty pictures I could show you. I just want to share a couple of my experiences in my life, so hopefully people will think about the situations they get into on a daily basis so they go home safe at the end of the day. Now, first I want to say the buzzsaw here behind me, I don't know how good you can see that or not, but you can tell there's no guards on it. You know, there's no guard on the blade, there's no guard on the sheaves. Eventually, at some point, right now it's kind of a prototype. I kind of put it together and started running it because I need it. It's essential to me getting the job done. And as far as safety goes, it's one of those things that I'm not as concerned about safety with it, because I understand that the number one thing you need to do with being safe is keeping your mind on task. If you have your head in the game and you understand the risks that are involved and you're focused on the job that you're doing, you can run a machinery without any guards on it and not get yourself hurt. Is it the smartest thing to do? Probably not. But at the same time, it's one of those things where you have to weigh the options of getting the job done versus being so safe you're living in a bubble and never getting anything accomplished in your life. Now, at some point I will put guards on this saw, but for right now, I understand if I put myself in the position where I am in the middle of the thing and I run it with my hands a safe distance away from any sheaves or rotating equipment and away from a rotating saw blade, I'm not putting myself at that big of a risk to get myself hurt. Now, sawmill comes with its own safety problems. You know, there's sharp blades, opening the blades, closing the blades, running the saw. You can put yourself in a position to get yourself hurt on the sawmill too. Now, that's something where if you wear a pair of gloves, it's probably the best thing you can do to keep yourself from getting hurt, causing some stitches. I've cut myself on my saw blades. You know, I'm not ashamed to say that. Personally, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. I have an electrical background, I have a mechanical background, I've done roofing, I've done plumbing, hydraulics, pneumatics. I don't consider myself an expert in any one field, but I come from a position where I've been there and I've done the jobs, and I can tell you from a place of experience the things that can bite you on some of these jobs. You know, safety gear, PPE, personal protective equipment is one of those things that, you know, some people believe in and some people don't. Personally, I believe in a lot of it, and I also believe they can hinder you just as much as help you. You can wear all the safety gear in the world and still get yourself hurt if you're not being cautious of the job that you're doing. Now, if you're running a grinder, I recommend you wear a pair of eyeglasses. You know, safety glasses is one of those things where if you're kicking dust and dirt up, you're not intentionally going to put it in your eye, but there is always that chance that you could have something break and come in contact with your eye, and you could lose your sight permanently for the rest of your life. And is it worth it for not getting a pair of glasses and putting them on for the couple of minutes you're doing a job? You know, you have to outweigh the risk versus reward kind of thing. You know, you're running the risk. Is it worth it because you don't want to wear them? Hearing protection is another thing. You know, I never really believed in hearing protection, and I was always raised running pieces of equipment without hearing protection, and I never really thought much of it. And I started running this sawmill, and the sawmill's kind of loud, and when you run a sawmill for 8-10 hours, you start to get a ringing in your ears from the motor running and standing there next to that motor running that whole time. And I went and got myself a set of earmuffs that have a radio on them, you know, the headphones, and it's nice to be able to listen to the radio while you work. And I've gotten so used to them that I actually take them everywhere I go. I put them in my truck. I use them when I mow grass. I use them when I run the chainsaw. I use them when I run the table saw for an extended period of time. I use them on the sawmill. And it's something that is to the point now I've learned when you use them, at the end of the day you go home and you understand that you're going to have your hearing for a longer period of time. We all lose our hearing over time, eventually at some point in your life. You know, everybody gets older and eventually you start to lose some of your senses. Is it worth it to cut the years off your life now because you want to run a piece of equipment without running some kind of hearing protection? Probably not. You know, we all want to be big tough guys that don't want to have to worry about taking and wearing any PPE, but at the end of the day, some of it is there and it makes sense to wear it to keep yourself from losing a vital part of your body. You know, gloves is another thing. I wear gloves when I run the sawmill because I don't want to get splinters in my hands all the time. You know, you always run the risk of pinching your finger and rolling a log around. You always run the risk of getting hurt on a daily basis. Table saws and circular saws and chop saws is another big one that I've seen a lot of people get hurt on. Table saws, I can tell you, if you think you're not going to get hurt on a table saw, you probably will. I always use the expression, I don't really use it, but I've been told it's kind of a true statement that a lot of good carpenters are missing fingers because they use a saw on a daily basis and they constantly get their fingers closer to that blade thinking it can't happen to them, and at some point it does happen. And when you come in contact with a circular saw blade, whether it's a table saw or a circular saw or a miter saw, you're not getting that piece of meat back when that blade takes it because it chops it up and you're missing about a 1/4 inch curve for that saw blade that's not coming back. So something to think about there. A couple other things I wanted to talk about. You know, the saw blade thing, I recommend you don't get on the other side of the saw table. If you're going to get on the other side of the saw table to pull a piece of wood through, it needs to be long enough that you can let go of it if it jerks. When it does jerk, a table saw catches a piece of wood, you're going to move about a foot whether you like it or not. And that knee-jerk reaction, chances are if you reach around the other side of the saw blade and it binds up and kicks back, you're going to come in contact with that blade, and that's how people lose a lot of fingers. You know, you have to understand that that blade doesn't move. You have to move into that blade, but at the same time, when a piece of wood gets bound in it, you don't have much of a choice. It's going to jerk and you're going to flinch. It's going to happen. And by the time you're involved in the blade, it's too late. Miter saw is another one. A miter saw, I'm guilty of it myself, running small pieces of wood, and you get a little too close to that blade. Now, this video is kind of a reply to Gator's World. I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. He comes up with some pretty good conversations that I think you should check out. But this video is kind of a reply to his video of safety, and he was showing the chop saw that he had that broke on him. And you always have that chance of having a machine malfunction. If you put yourself in a spot where you're close to getting hurt, but you know that you're going to be safe, and the machine malfunctions, you're going to get yourself involved with a piece of machinery and it's not going to be a good day. So you got to think about that too. You know, there's always that chance that something's going to happen outside of your control that could put you in a bad position and you're going to get hurt. I don't want to get too preachy with this video. All I'm going to say is I know a lot of people out there do tree cutting, moving logs, running sawmills, running buck saws, cordwood saws, table saws, chop saws, all kinds of equipment, drills, presses, milling machines, lathes. You know, just be careful out there. You know, a lot of people don't have the courage to say something to somebody because they're afraid of the negativity that's going to come when you tell someone, hey, you know, what you're doing isn't really that safe. There's a lot of people out there, I call them safety Nazis or safety Sallies. You know, they're people that are out there just to cause a headache. They like to preach to people and just harp on people. And I'm not one of those people. I don't like to do that. All I'm going to say is, if someone does come to you and tells you, hey, you know, you ought to think about putting a guard on that saw. You ought to think about putting a pair of gloves on or a pair of safety glasses on. They're trying to look out for your best interest, and they want you to go home at the end of the day the same way you got up in the morning. and not end up with a life-changing injury. So just take a second to think about that when someone tells you about something that you're not doing that's safe, or you're doing something that is unsafe, I should say. Sometimes they're just being a pain in the rear end, but sometimes they're trying to look out for your best interest. So take the time to consider the fact that they're there trying to look out for your best interest. That's all I got today. I'm not going to ramble on and on about this, even though I could. I could give you a lot of instances, a lot of cases, a lot of stories I've got. A lot of pictures I could share with you too, but I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to get too gory on here. That's all I've got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope I didn't put anybody to sleep. And just stay safe. Look out for each other. Look out for yourself. Think about what you're doing. You know, don't put yourself in a bad position. Till next time, I'll see you guys.